Hey, I'm Victor.
I'm 34, and my wife, Jessica, is 31. We've been together for almost a decade, married for 7 years. I thought we had a great marriage until I found out she had other needs. Needs that apparently only a chimney sweep could fulfill. A chimney sweep, but you ever have one of those moments where everything just clicks? Where your brain starts connecting dots you didn't even realize were there. That happened to me, and what I uncovered. Man, I wish I could say it was just your run-of-the-mill cheating story. But this was something else. And the worst part? I helped set it all in motion, without even realizing it. But let's rewind a few weeks so you can experience this nightmare exactly the way I did. A few months ago, we had a guy come over to clean our chimney. It was one of those things I'd been putting off forever, and Jessica kept reminding me. We should get it done before winter, she'd say. Just in case. Now, we don't even use the fireplace that much. Maybe once or twice a year, just for the vibes. But she kept bringing it up, so I finally gave in and booked an appointment. A guy showed up a few days later, mid-30s, fit, one of those guys who looks like he spends his weekends chopping wood for fun. He had the whole chimney sweep getup, black uniform, boots, tool belt, and a brush that looked straight out of a Victorian movie. I barely paid attention to him, just some dude doing a job. But Jessica? She was glued to the whole process. She stood there in the living room, arms crossed, watching him work like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. Asked a million questions. Not just the usual polite stuff, either. No, she was engaged. How long have you been doing this? Is it hard work? What's the strangest thing you've ever found in a chimney? She even offered him coffee, which, okay, Jessica's friendly, but she's never once offered coffee to the plumber or the electrician. It stood out, but at the time I just thought she was being chatty. I remember teasing her when he left. I smirked and said, "You thinking about a career change?" She laughed. "No, it's just interesting." And I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? It was such a small moment. A random afternoon. Nothing that should have mattered. But looking back, that was the exact moment my marriage started to rot from the inside. I just didn't see it yet. A few days after the chimney guy came, Jessica brought it up again while we were eating dinner. "Hey, I was reading online, and apparently, chimney sweeps are supposed to come back for a second checkup." I raised an eyebrow. "A checkup?" She nodded. "Yeah, just to make sure everything's still working properly. Like a follow-up appointment." Now, I don't know much about chimneys, but that sounded weird to me. It's not a doctor's office. It's a tunnel in the wall that lets smoke escape. Either it's clean or it's not. But Jessica said it so casually, like it was a completely normal thing. And because I was an idiot, I didn't even question it. I just shrugged and said, "Yeah, sure, if you think it's necessary." And just like that, I handed her the perfect excuse. Here's the thing, I didn't even see that second visit. That was the day I got called into work late. I remember texting Jessica, letting her know I wouldn't be home until after 10. She just replied, "No worries. Love you." When I finally got home that night, she was already in bed. But the next morning, she was in an amazing mood, like humming in the kitchen, all smiles, extra affectionate. At the time, I thought, maybe she just had a good day. I even joked, "What's up with you? Win the lottery." She just smirked and said, "Something like that," and I still didn't think anything of it. I kissed her goodbye, went to work, and carried on with my life, completely oblivious. But looking back, that was the exact moment everything changed. Because after that, Jessica started acting different. At first, it was subtle. Little things, like how she suddenly started putting more effort into her appearance, wearing makeup just to go grocery shopping, buying new lingerie that I never got to see her wear, leaving the house earlier than usual for work. And then came the late nights. Jessica never used to work late. She's in accounting, her job isn't the kind that requires overtime. But suddenly, she had all these deadlines that kept her in the office until 10, sometimes even midnight. And the weirdest part? Whenever I asked about it, she barely gave me any details. Just vague answers like, "Ugh, it's been so busy." Or, "You know how it is this time of year." Except I didn't know. because she never used to say that before. And then came the receipts. I was checking our credit card statement one day, habit from my army days, and I saw a charge for professional cleaning services. At first I thought, oh, that must be for the chimney guy. But then I looked at the date. It wasn't from the time he came to clean the chimney. It was from a week later. And a few days after that, another charge. Same company. Why the hell would we be paying for multiple cleaning services when we'd already had the chimney done? Something wasn't adding up. And for the first time, I felt a pit form in my stomach. That sinking feeling didn't go away. I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. That Jessica wouldn't do anything shady. That there had to be a logical explanation. But that doubt? It was like an itch in the back of my mind, one I couldn't scratch. And once you start noticing little things, it's impossible to stop. Jessica was glued to her phone more than usual. Not just scrolling, hiding it, turning the screen away when I walked into the room. If I sat next to her on the couch, she'd casually angle it just out of my view. I didn't say anything, but I noticed. Then came the text she got one night while we were watching a movie. I glanced over, not trying to snoop, just instinctively catching the notification. See you Friday, winky face. She locked her phone so fast it was like muscle memory. I paused the movie. Who was that? She barely looked at me. Just a coworker. I waited for her to say more. Which coworker? Why the winky face? But she didn't. Just went right back to watching, acting like it never happened. I let it go. But my gut was screaming at me. And then came Friday. Jessica left for work at 6 p.m. Now, I don't know much about accounting, but I do know that clients don't schedule financial meetings at night on a Friday. So around 8 p.m., I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I called her office. A woman answered. Hey, is Jessica still there? I asked, keeping my voice casual. The receptionist actually laughed. Jessica? Oh, she left hours ago. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. I forced a chuckle. Oh, right. My mistake. Then I hung up and sat there, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles went white. She wasn't at work. She lied straight to my face. And for what? There was only one way to find out. I grabbed my keys and left the house. I was going to follow her. I wasn't even thinking at that point, just running on pure instinct. Jessica had never lied to me like this before. At least not that I knew of. And the worst part? I still wanted to believe I was wrong, that there was some reasonable explanation for all of this. But deep down I already knew. I kept a few car lengths behind her as she drove across town, heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't some master detective. I was just a husband desperate for the truth. And the truth? It was about to hit me in the face like a brick. Jessica pulled into a quiet neighborhood. Not a bar. Not a restaurant. Not even some friend's house I recognized. Just a random, unsuspecting suburban home. She parked, stepped out, and walked right up to the front door.
No hesitaste.
No looking around. Like she belonged there. And then the door swung open. And standing there, holding it open for her, was a man in a black uniform. At first, my brain didn't fully process it. It was dark, and I was keeping my distance. But as soon as he turned, I saw it. The coveralls. The chimney brush resting against the porch railing. And just like that, every weird little moment from the past few weeks snapped into place. Jessica wasn't working late. She wasn't buried in deadlines. She was having an affair with the damn chimney sweep. And the part that really got me? The part that made me want to laugh and scream at the same time? She greeted him like a girlfriend greeting her boyfriend. Hand on his chest. Flirty giggle. The whole deal. I gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought I'd snap it in half. But I didn't move. I didn't burst out of the car or charge up to the house like some lunatic. No, I just sat there. Watching. Processing. Because something wasn't adding up. A guy like that, mid-30s, built like a guy who lifts actual sacks of coal. He wasn't the kind of guy who owned a fancy suburban home. So if this wasn't his house, then whose house was it? And that's when it hit me. He wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was taking her into other people's homes while they thought he was cleaning their fireplaces. I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at that house like I had just discovered a new level of human stupidity. Because this wasn't just a run-of-the-mill affair. This was some next-level nonsense. Jessica wasn't just cheating. She was hopping from house to house with a chimney sweep, getting her thrills while homeowners thought their fireplaces were being cleaned. I actually let out a laugh. A bitter, disbelieving laugh. Because why? Why a chimney sweep? Why in random people's homes? I had so many questions. And yet, I already knew the only answer that mattered. She wasn't the woman I thought she was. I stayed parked across the street, watching. Chimney guy let her inside, and the door shut behind them.
No hesitasten.
No looking over their shoulders. They'd done this before. And that's when the anger hit. Not a hot, explosive rage. No, this was cold, controlled. The kind of anger that makes you think very, very clearly. I didn't storm in. I didn't call her phone. I didn't do any of the things a guy in my situation might do in a movie. I just sat there, thinking. Because if this was their system, if they were using strangers' houses as their personal getaway spots, then that meant this wasn't a one-time thing. No, this was a pattern, a habit. And that meant they'd do it again. And next time, I'd be ready. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Jessica was curled up beside me, breathing evenly, completely unaware that her little secret had been cracked wide open. And me? I was just lying there, wondering how the hell I ended up in a marriage where my wife thought she could get away with something this stupid. But I wasn't going to blow up. Not yet. Not until I had everything I needed. So the next morning, while Jessica was busy getting ready for work, I made a little purchase. A cheap, motion-activated security camera. Small, easy to hide. I installed it right outside our front door. Because if she was bold enough to sneak around with Chimney Guy in random people's houses, then I had a strong suspicion she was comfortable enough to bring him to mine. And if that was true, then I wasn't just dealing with a cheater. I was dealing with a woman who thought I was an absolute idiot. And nothing pisses me off more than that. You ever have one of those moments where you hope, desperately hope you're just being paranoid? That your brain is making a big deal out of nothing? Yeah. I tried to tell myself that. I tried to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. That maybe Jessica wasn't the kind of woman who would invite a chimney sweep into strangers' homes for some extracurricular activities. That maybe she wasn't the kind of woman who would turn around and bring him into my house. But deep down I knew, and I was about to have proof. The setup. I installed the camera in a spot she wouldn't notice. Tucked into the porch light fixture, angled just enough to catch the front door. It wasn't fancy, just a cheap, motion-activated thing I picked up at a hardware store. It uploaded the footage straight to my phone. And then I waited. I didn't even have to wait long. Just a few days later, Jessica got home from work acting off. Not in a guilty way, but in a way that pissed me off even more. She was comfortable, relaxed, like she had it all figured out. She kissed me on the cheek, made some comment about how we should do a date night soon, and then hopped into the shower. And that's when I checked the footage. The moment everything snapped into place. The clip started with Jessica pulling into the driveway. She got out, looked around way too carefully, then took out her phone and started typing. Not 2 minutes later, a car pulled up, and there he was. Chimney Guy. He wasn't even in uniform this time. No coveralls, no tools. Just a guy in a plain t-shirt and jeans, walking up to my house like he owned the place. Jessica opened the door so fast it was like she'd been waiting by it. I watched, jaw clenched, as she pulled him inside and shut the door behind them. That was it. Just a few seconds of footage. But it was all I needed. Because in that moment, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't some spontaneous, heat-of-the-moment affair. This was routine. This was planned. And if he was comfortable enough to keep coming to my house, that meant one thing. I'd been played for a fool. I stared at my phone screen, watching the clip over and over, my mind looping through every dumb moment where I should have seen the signs. Jessica smiling at her phone. Jessica working late. Jessica insisting we bring Chimney Guy back for a follow-up. Every single one of those moments was her playing me like a damn fiddle. And me? I let it happen. I sat there, phone in hand, fingers gripping it so tightly I thought I might crush it. And the worst part? I wasn't even mad in the way you'd expect. I didn't feel the urge to scream. I didn't feel the need to punch a wall. No, the anger I felt was cold. It was measured. Because she wasn't just cheating. She was mocking me. Every time she kissed me goodbye before work. Every time she sat across from me at dinner, pretending to be tired from a long day. Every time she climbed into our bed at night, laying beside me like she hadn't spent the afternoon wrapped around some blue-collar Romeo. She thought she had me completely fooled. And that was unforgivable. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No, that would be too easy. Jessica needed to feel this. She needed to experience the exact level of humiliation, exposure, and sheer psychological devastation that she had inflicted on me. And I had the perfect idea. I was going to make her world come crashing down. But first, I needed her to walk right into my trap. I didn't say a word to Jessica that night. Not about the video. Not about Chimney Guy. Not about the fact that I now knew everything. Instead, I played it cool. Normal. Sweet even. I kissed her goodnight. I asked about her day. I even joked around with her over breakfast the next morning like I didn't have irrefutable proof that she was betraying me in the dumbest way imaginable. Because the truth is, when you're planning revenge, you don't go in angry. You go in smart. And that morning, as she sat across from me, sipping her coffee, blissfully unaware that her life was about to implode, I smiled and leaned in slightly. Babe, I was thinking, maybe we should spice things up. Her eyes flicked up from her mug. Spice things up. I nodded, keeping my expression as casual as possible. Yeah, try something new in the bedroom. I saw it then, this quick, almost relieved flicker in her eyes, like she thought maybe I had noticed her being distant, and now I was trying to fix things. That made this even better. Oh, she said, suddenly interested. Like what? I grinned. A little role-playing. Asterisk. She raised an eyebrow. Huh. Okay, that could be fun. What kind of role-playing? I leaned back, crossed my arms, and said it with the biggest grin on my face. I'll be the chimney sweep. The color drained from her face, like someone had yanked the plug out of her brain and every circuit inside it shorted at once. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed, then opened again. What? She whispered. I just kept grinning. Oh, I know what. And in that moment, as I watched my cheating wife's soul temporarily leave her body, I knew this was going to be the most satisfying day of my life. Jessica sat there, completely frozen, her coffee cup hovering midair like she had just forgotten how gravity worked. What? She stammered again, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled wider. God, this was fun. You heard me, babe? I said, leaning forward, my tone dripping with amusement. I'll be the chimney sweep, like the one you've been seeing behind my back. Boom. She flinched like I had physically slapped her. And let me tell you, watching her go from confident wife with a secret to deer in headlights in a matter of seconds, that was better than any revenge plan I could have come up with. Her eyes darted all over the room, like she was searching for an escape hatch. Victor, what are you talking about? She finally forced out, her voice unsteady. I tilted my head, acting innocently confused. Oh, come on, Jessica. You don't recognize the role? Let me remind you. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and tapped on a video. The screen lit up with security footage of Chimney Guy walking into our house. And Jessica? Jessica turned into a corpse. I mean, all the blood vanished from her face. Wait. I can explain. I laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, babe, please. I don't need an explanation. I have the footage. I have the receipts. I have the whole damn play-by-play of you sneaking around like you're in some budget romance novel with the dirtiest handyman in town. Her mouth kept opening and closing, but no sound was coming out. And me? I was just getting started. I walked over to the counter, where I had left a black bag. I unzipped it dramatically and started pulling things out, one by one. A black button-up, pair of work gloves, a chimney brush, Jessica looked physically ill. "What the hell is this?" she croaked. I grinned, twirling the brush between my fingers. "Oh, just my costume for tonight." I winked. "I told you, babe. We're playing a little role-playing game." And as she sat there, pale, shaking, barely able to process what was happening, I knew this wasn't just revenge. This was art. Jessica looked like she was about to faint. Her hands were gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her breathing had turned shallow, rapid, like her body was actively rejecting reality. And me? I was having the time of my life. I tapped the chimney brush against my palm and gave her a slow, mocking nod. "Well, you wanted him to come back for a second visit, right? Guess what? I'm here." Her lips trembled. "Victor, please." I raised a hand. "No, no, let's not ruin the moment." I gestured at the bag on the counter. "I put a lot of effort into this. Even got a little soot for authenticity." She swallowed hard. I can explain." I smirked. "Oh, I bet you can. Let me guess. You and Chimney Guy were just going over fire safety tips? Practicing evacuation drills." I let out a laugh. "Oh wait, no, that's what I'm doing right now. Because I'm about to evacuate your ass from this house." She winced. "Victor, please, let's just talk." I shook my head, sighing dramatically. "You know, I really thought you'd at least be original. But no, here you are, giving me the same tired, pathetic let's talk routine like I'm supposed to sit here and listen to whatever garbage excuse you pull out of thin air." Jessica looked like she was about to cry. And you know what? Good. She wasn't crying when she was sneaking around. She wasn't crying when she was bringing that man into my house. She wasn't crying when she was sitting across from me, looking me in the eyes, pretending like nothing was happening. So no, I wasn't going to comfort her. I was going to end her. I pulled out my phone and held it up. "You want to talk? Fine. Let's do it this way." I tapped the screen, and suddenly, Jessica's voice was blaring through our Bluetooth speaker. Not just any audio, though. Her moaning, whimpering, saying Chimney Guy's name. Jessica's entire body seized up. Her eyes shot to the speaker, then back to me, her face frozen in sheer terror. I leaned in slightly. "Now I'm curious, babe. Think the neighbors will recognize your voice?" Her breath hitched. "Victor, no, please." But it was too late, because I had just gotten started. Jessica lunged for my phone. I stepped back, holding it just out of reach, watching as she desperately tried to snatch it from my hands. Her face was pure panic. Not just guilt, not just regret, but that real, stomach-dropping kind of fear people get when they know they're about to be completely and utterly ruined. "Victor, please stop. Just turn it off." I smirked. "Why? You seem to be having such a great time in the recording. I mean, listen to this part." I tapped play again, and her own voice filled the house. Breathless, begging, moaning Chimney Guy's name. Jessica let out this strangled sob, hands shaking as she reached for me again. But I wasn't even looking at her anymore. I was looking out the window, because right across the street, our neighbors were outside. The Thompsons were setting up their patio for a barbecue. The Henderson kids were riding bikes up and down the sidewalk. Mrs. Williams was watering her flowers. Perfect audience. I met Jessica's eyes, watching the realization dawn on her face. And then, I pushed a button on my phone, and the audio switched to the outdoor speakers. Our entire neighborhood heard the first moan before Jessica screamed.
Victor, no.
She bolted for the front door, but it was too late. The damage was done. Outside, the Thompsons froze mid-conversation. Mrs. Williams turned her head so fast I thought she might snap it. The kids, gone, immediately pedaled their little bikes straight inside. And me? I just stood there, arms crossed, watching Jessica's entire world collapse around her. She spun on me, face red, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Turn it off, please." I let the audio play for just a few more glorious seconds before I finally tapped the pause button. Then I gave her a slow, deliberate nod. "There. Now the whole block knows exactly what kind of woman you are." Jessica was shaking, her breath coming out in short, ragged gasps. And then, The final nail in the coffin. Because right at that moment another car pulled up. Not mine. Not Jessica's. No, this one belonged to someone very, very important. Because stepping out of the driver's seat was Chimney Guy's wife. And Jessica? She looked like she was about to collapse. If Jessica thought this night couldn't get any worse, she was about to learn otherwise. Because standing in our driveway, stepping out of that car with absolute purpose, was none other than Chimney Guy's wife. And she did not look like she came for a friendly chat. Jessica saw her and went completely still, like a rabbit that just spotted a hawk circling overhead. "No," she whispered, shaking her head like she could somehow will this away. "No, no, no. What did you do, Victor?" I folded my arms and smirked. "Me? Nothing. I just thought it was only fair that she knew the truth too. Chimney Guy's wife. Let's call her Melissa, because that's her real name and she deserves credit for what happened next." Marched straight up the driveway, her heels clicking against the pavement like a damn countdown clock. And Jessica? She looked petrified. "You," Melissa said, pointing directly at Jessica, voice dripping with rage. "I knew my husband was a piece of garbage, but you're just disgusting." Jessica opened her mouth, probably to spit out some kind of excuse, but Melissa wasn't interested. She took another step forward, and Jessica stumbled back, hands up like she was about to start begging. "Melissa, please." Smack. Melissa's hand came up so fast, so hard, that the sound echoed across the whole damn street. Jessica's head snapped to the side. Her own neighbors were watching this happen, eyes wide, mouths open. And me? I just leaned against the doorframe and enjoyed the show. Jessica let out a strangled little sob, clutching her face, but Melissa wasn't done. "You really thought you could sneak around with my husband and there'd be no consequences?" she hissed. "What, you thought you were special? Honey, you're just one of 4 women he's been screwing on the job." And just like that, Jessica's entire body sagged. I could see it in real time, the horrified realization settling into her bones. "No," she whispered, voice trembling. "That's not true." Melissa laughed, a sharp, cruel laugh. "Oh, babe, it's very true. And you were just a damn side quest." Jessica actually wobbled on her feet, like her brain just shut down completely. And me? I let out the biggest, most satisfied exhale of my life. Because after everything, after the lying, the sneaking around, the absolute humiliation she put me through, Jessica had just been reduced to nothing. And the best part? The entire neighborhood had front row seats. Jessica didn't sleep that night. I know because I didn't either. She spent the entire time pacing the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with her head in her hands, whispering things like, "This isn't real. This isn't happening." Me? I was completely at peace. Because the next morning, Jessica was going to wake up to one final gift from me. I was up before the sun, sipping my coffee, watching the world outside come to life. And when she finally walked into the kitchen, looking like she hadn't stopped crying for hours, I slid a crisp manila envelope across the table. She stared at it. "What's this?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Divorce papers." Her face crumpled. "Victor, please, can we just talk?" I tilted my head. "Talk? Babe, I think we already did. In fact, so did the entire neighborhood." She flinched. I stood up, stretched, and walked toward the front door. But me? I wasn't satisfied just yet. Because while Jessica had lost me, there was still one more person who needed to be completely destroyed. So I did what any rational, level-headed man would do. I went door to door. See, I knew which houses Jessica and Chimney Guy had been using for their little escapades. And I also knew that most people these days have security cameras. So I started casually mentioning it. "Hey, I was thinking, you might want to check your security footage from when you hired that chimney sweep. Just a hunch." At first, people were confused. But then they checked. And the results? Devastating. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who got played. There were multiple clips of Chimney Guy bringing Jessica into homes, doing, well, you can guess. Some cameras even had audio. And let me tell you, nothing spreads faster in a suburban neighborhood than juicy gossip. The footage exploded through the community. And before long, one particularly pissed-off homeowner did exactly what I was hoping for. They sent the footage directly to Chimney Guy's company. And guess what? Fired. Just like that, Romeo lost his job. Jessica lost her marriage. And me? I gained closure. It's funny. Looking back, I could sit here and be bitter. I could dwell on how stupid I felt for not seeing it sooner. I could waste my time wondering if there were signs I missed. But the truth is, I don't regret a single thing. Jessica made her choice. Chimney Guy made his. And me? I made sure they paid for it. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And sometimes, you don't just get burned. You go up in flames.